The organ music swelled, a little too loud for the small church, and I found myself tracing the worn pattern on the pew in front of me with my thumbnail. My sister, Peyton, was about to walk down the aisle. Any second now. My stomach was a knot, not with excitement exactly, more like a dull, persistent ache that had been with me since last night. Like I'd eaten something bad. Only I hadn't. It was the kind of feeling where your body knows something before your mind catches up. I kept telling myself it was just wetting nerves, you know? For her, for the whole family, the big day finally here. Peyton, always the one who dreamed of this. White dress and all the trimmings. And here it was. She looked incredible. I'd seen her briefly in the dressing room. Radiant. That's the word everyone used. And she was, truly. Her smile, even through the veil she insisted on, was just pure, unadulterated joy. For her, it was perfect. For me, something... I don't know. It was like a single cold drop of water, expanding slowly inside. My mother, Sharon, was beside me, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, totally caught up in the moment. She leaned over, whispered, "She looks like an angel, doesn't she, Amara?" And I nodded, forcing a smile that felt brittle, like it might shatter if I held it too long. I'm 32, Peyton's 28. We've always been close, the kind of sisters who finish each other's sentences, or at least we used to be. Things felt a little different in the last year or so. Subtle shifts I couldn't quite pinpoint, or maybe just didn't want to. I'd blamed it on the wedding planning, the stress of it all. The church was packed, a sea of well-wishers, cousins I hadn't seen since Christmas, old family friends. Everyone was buzzing, quiet whispers of anticipation filling the space between the organ notes. I tried to focus on the stained glass window, the way the morning light fractured into jewel tones across the aisle. Anything to distract from that growing pressure in my chest. It wasn't exactly fear, or even sadness. Just a profound sense of something being not right. Like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. I remember thinking about the last few months, how frantic Peyton had been, how she'd sometimes clam up when I asked about certain details. She'd brush it off. "Oh, you know, bride stuff," and I'd let it go. Always tried to give her space, especially with this, her big day. But there were little things, a flicker of something in her eyes sometimes, a quick glance away. Nothing I could put a finger on, just a gut feeling really, that I'd learned to mostly ignore because, well, it was Peyton. She deserved all the happiness in the world. The music shifted, a new melody, clearer and more deliberate. The signal. This was it. The doors at the back of the church swung inward, catching the light. Everyone turned, craning their necks, ready for the big reveal. My own breath hitched, not in excitement, but in that strange, silent dread. I gripped the wooden pew, my knuckles white, watching as the aisle, suddenly very long, stretched out before the altar. I knew it was Peyton's turn next, but first, the groom. And in that instant, a quiet alarm blared somewhere deep inside me, louder than the organ, louder than the murmuring crowd. I just didn't know why yet. The groom, of course. My mind in that split second raced. I'd seen pictures, sure. Peyton had shown me plenty, even if she was a little coy about him sometimes, which I thought was endearing. Said he was private. I'd met him once, maybe twice, super briefly, at a family dinner at my parents' place in early March of last year, just a few weeks after they'd started dating. Peyton had brought him over, all giggly and bright. He was quiet, polite, a little reserved. His name was Logan. Peyton and Logan met at a charity gala in downtown Portland, back in February 2023. She was volunteering, helping with registrations, and he was there as a guest, apparently part of a big corporate donation. She told me the story 100 times. He'd accidentally spilled a drink near her table, which was actually a very smooth move, she said, because it got them talking. They talked for ages that night, apparently, ignoring the whole event. She called me the next morning, practically vibrating with excitement. "Amara, you won't believe him. He's everything." She'd always been a bit dramatic, but this felt different. She'd found someone who truly made her light up. I remember her describing him, his kind eyes, how he made her laugh without even trying, the way he listened. I was genuinely happy for her. Peyton had a string of pretty mediocre boyfriends in her 20s, a couple of total duds, honestly, who never seemed to appreciate her. So, hearing her talk about Logan, it felt like she'd finally found someone decent. I pushed for details, dates, where they went. She'd tell me about dinners at the Pearl, weekend trips up to Astoria, little things. He was apparently a successful architect, well-established, a few years older than her, which she liked. It all sounded good, stable. When I met him that first time, at Mom and Dad's, he seemed perfectly fine. He had a quiet charm. He didn't say much, but he paid attention. He remembered things I said, little details about my job as a marketing manager, about my cat, Mittens. My dad, Ronald, was usually wary of Peyton's boyfriends, but even he seemed to approve, chatting with Logan about current events and the housing market. My mom, Sharon, was practically beaming. She always wanted Peyton settled, with a good man. That night, Logan even offered to help clear the table, which won big points with Mom. I only saw him again once more, a month or so later, at a casual backyard barbecue. He was still quiet, very attentive to Peyton, always making sure she had a drink, that she was comfortable. He had this way of touching her arm, a gentle squeeze that made her just melt. I thought it was sweet, a little old-fashioned even. They seemed very much in love. Everything felt right, in that typical, everyday kind of way. Nothing screamed, "Pay attention." Maybe that was the first red flag, how little I actually saw him. Peyton and I used to have coffee every Saturday morning at the little cafe on Hawthorne. We'd dissect our weeks, talk about everything. After Logan, those mornings became less frequent. She was always busy with him. "He wants me all to himself," she'd joke, and I'd laugh along, assuming it was new relationship bliss, that intense initial period where you just can't get enough of each other. I'd been there. Another thing was the gifts. Logan was generous. Really generous. Not just flowers, but a new designer handbag, a weekend getaway to Napa Valley she'd mentioned offhand, even a down payment on a new car when her old one finally died. Peyton was never one for flashy displays, so it almost felt a little much sometimes. I remember asking her, "Isn't that a lot, P?" And she'd just shrug, her eyes bright. "He likes to spoil me, says I deserve it." And part of me thought, yeah, she does. She's worked hard. She's a good person. I guess the biggest thing, looking back, was how she'd become more guarded. She used to tell me everything, but with Logan, there were entire aspects of his life she seemed to gloss over. She'd say he was super busy with work, which explained why he couldn't always join us, or why he preferred to stay in on some weekends. I'd try to dig, playfully. "So what's Logan really like when no one's around?" And she'd just smile, a little too brightly, and change the subject. Always, Logan is wonderful. Logan is amazing. No depth beyond that. I rationalized it as her being fiercely protective of her new relationship. I assumed she was just happy, finally, and that was all that mattered. As the music played, and I saw the first glimpse of him, walking slowly, deliberately down the aisle. Every one of those dismissed moments, those tiny little quirks, they didn't suddenly click into place, or make everything make sense. It was more like an internal tremor, a slow-motion reevaluation of every single interaction, every conversation, every feeling of unease I'd ever had. And then he was closer, and the details became clearer. And the tremor became a full-blown internal quake. My breath caught again, sharper this time. He was walking towards the altar, a small, confident smile on his face, oblivious to the fact that my entire world was about to fracture. My sister was about to marry a man who looked exactly like the man I'd been dating for almost 2 years. His name wasn't Logan. It was Edgar. It was Edgar. My Edgar. Wearing a tuxedo, a fresh haircut, and that slightly lopsided smile he always used when he was feeling charming. He walked past our row, just feet away. His gaze fixed on the altar. Then briefly, almost imperceptibly, he looked towards the back, presumably for Peyton. He didn't see me. How could he? I was a ghost, a statue. My vision narrowed, all the peripheral noise fading to a dull hum. The organ, the whispers, my mother's soft sniffles. It was all just background to the roaring in my ears. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. I felt a cold dread spread through me, chilling my limbs, making my skin prickle. It was like I was watching a movie, a bad dream, and my real body was somewhere else, trapped. I remember trying to breathe, but it felt shallow, like my lungs weren't working right. My fingers, still gripping the pew, felt numb. Edgar, who had been at my apartment just last night. Edgar, who had kissed me goodnight and said, "See you tomorrow, love." My tomorrow, our tomorrow. Not this, not standing at the altar for my sister. Peyton started her walk down the aisle then, on my father Ronald's arm. She was a vision, truly, glowing. And as she glided past, her eyes met mine. For just a fraction of a second, her smile faltered. A tiny, almost imperceptible flicker of something. Recognition? Guilt? Fear? Crossed her face before she quickly recomposed herself, her gaze moving back to Edgar, who now stood waiting for her. A picture of a loving groom. I tried to get up. I needed to do something, anything. But my legs wouldn't move. My mind was screaming, but my body was frozen. What was I supposed to do? Shout? Make a scene at my sister's wedding? My sister's wedding. The enormity of it, the layers of betrayal, hit me with such force I felt lightheaded. It wasn't just him, it was her. Both of them. This wasn't some cosmic coincidence. This was planned. The ceremony was a blur of words I didn't hear, vows that felt like a mockery, a priest's voice that echoed hollowly. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like an eternity. Every now and then, my mother would nudge me, a soft, happy nudge, and I'd force myself to nod, to smile vaguely, to pretend I was present. But I wasn't. I was replaying everything. Every single interaction with Edgar, with Peyton, for the past 2 years. Edgar and I met at a volunteer event for a local animal shelter almost 2 years ago, in late May 2022. He was charming, funny, easy to talk to. He managed a mid-sized architectural firm downtown, the same firm Peyton mentioned. That detail. The firm. He talked about his long hours, the late nights. He was always busy. That was his thing. We fell into a comfortable routine, weeknight dinners at our favorite Italian place, Sunday hikes in Forest Park, quiet evenings at my apartment watching movies. He was kind, thoughtful, always remembered my coffee order. Our relationship wasn't fiery or dramatic. It was steady, dependable. That's what I loved about it. Or what I thought I loved. Now, those long hours and late nights at his office took on a sinister new meaning, and Peyton's evasiveness, her "he's very private" comments, her always being busy when I wanted to hang out. It all twisted into something ugly. I remembered a specific conversation with my best friend Ivy about 6 months ago. We were having cocktails, and I was venting about Edgar's habit of sometimes disappearing for a whole day, no calls, no texts, then resurfacing with a vague apology about a work emergency. "Ivy," I'd said, swirling my drink, "sometimes I feel like he's leading a whole other life I know nothing about." Ivy, always practical, had just laughed. "Amara, everyone needs their space. And he's an architect, right? Big projects, big stress. Just be glad he's not glued to his phone like some guys." I'd tried to believe her, tried to tell myself I was overthinking it, but now it was a glaring red sign, Not a red flag. A billboard. Another incident, maybe 8 months ago. Edgar had gone out of town for a conference to Seattle. He was gone for 3 days. We FaceTimed once, briefly, and he seemed distracted, in a hotel room that looked surprisingly sterile. He normally stayed in boutique places. When he came back, he was unusually quiet. I remember asking, "How was the conference, honey? Anything interesting?" And he just gave me a quick, almost dismissive, "Oh, same old stuff. You know how it is. No details, no stories, just a blank wall." My sister, Peyton, had also been strangely unavailable that week. She'd said she was on a short trip with friends. I remember thinking it was odd, but then again, Peyton loved spontaneous trips. There was also the time, maybe a year ago, when I'd mentioned my sister's name to him, just in passing. Peyton was asking about that new ramen place. We should try it sometime. He'd frozen for a split second, then quickly, smoothly said, "Oh, your sister. Yeah, I think I met her at your parents' once. Briefly, right?" A casual dismissal, like he barely remembered her. I'd thought nothing of it, just a fleeting interaction. Now, the memory made me feel cold, the calculated way he'd played it down. The ceremony ended. "You may kiss the bride," the priest said. And they did. A long, tender kiss that made the crowd coo. My vision blurred. I couldn't watch. I closed my eyes, a single tear tracing a hot path down my cheek, unnoticed amidst the joyous tears of my mother. When I opened them, they were turning, smiling, walking back down the aisle, husband and wife, my sister, and my boyfriend. As they reached our row, Peyton's eyes found mine again. This time, there was no mistaking it. A flash of desperate pleading, a silent message in her eyes. Please, don't. And Edgar, for the very first time, saw me. His eyes widened, his jaw went slack. The confident smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated terror. He stumbled, just a half step, catching himself on Peyton's arm. She looked up at him, puzzled. He quickly recovered, gripping her hand tighter, but his eyes, wide and panicked, kept darting to mine, pleading in a way I'd never seen before. My mind, usually prone to overthinking, was suddenly clear. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate, calculated deception. And it had just exploded in my face, right here, in the middle of a church filled with everyone I knew. The reception. I had to get out before the reception, but where would I go? What would I say? How could I possibly explain this to anyone? The sheer magnitude of the lie, the years of it, was crushing. The recessional music finished, and people started moving, a happy, chattering throng heading for the church doors. My mother, Sharon, pulled me into a quick hug. "Wasn't that just perfect, Amara? My little girl. Married." Her voice was thick with emotion. I just managed a strangled sound that she must have taken for agreement, because she didn't seem to notice anything off. I had to move. I had to get out. I squeezed past a few smiling relatives, nodding vaguely at greetings, my eyes scanning for an exit. Any exit. I felt like a trapped animal. The air in the church felt thick, suffocating. My throat was dry, painfully so. I could feel a cold sweat trickling down my back beneath my bridesmaid dress. Bridesmaid, the absurdity of it. I was supposed to be celebrating, not unraveling. I made it to the narthex, the little entry hall, just as the last of the wedding party was filing out towards the waiting cars. Peyton and Edgar were there, laughing, accepting congratulations. He spotted me again, his eyes locking onto mine, a desperate plea still etched on his face. He made a move, just a slight turn of his head, a twitch of his arm, as if to come towards me. But Peyton, still beaming, pulled him slightly to the side to talk to our aunt, Dahlia. I used that second to slip out the heavy oak doors, into the cool, crisp Portland autumn air. The relief of being outside was immense, like someone had just loosened a vice on my chest. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the scent of damp leaves and car exhaust filling my lungs. My phone was in my clutch purse. I pulled it out, my fingers fumbling. My lock screen showed a picture of Edgar and me, smiling, arms around each other at the beach, taken just last month. The irony. I stared at it, then quickly scrolled to his contact. The urge to call him, to scream, to demand answers, was overwhelming. But what would I say? "Congratulations on your wedding, you bastard," to my sister? I walked away from the church, away from the parked cars and the smiling faces, not sure where I was going. My own car was parked a few blocks away. I just needed space, to breathe, to process. My thoughts were a jumbled, chaotic mess. Denial battled with a searing, painful acceptance. No, this isn't real. It's a mistake. He looks like him, but it can't be. But the fear in his eyes, the look Peyton gave me, it was real, so sickeningly real. I found a small, quiet park bench under a big maple tree, its leaves a riot of red and gold. The leaves crunched underfoot as I walked, the sound almost too loud in the sudden quiet of my mind. I sat down heavily, the elegant fabric of my dress feeling utterly out of place. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Peyton. "Amara, where are you? The car's leaving for the reception. Mom's looking for you." I stared at it, then typed, my fingers shaking. I can't. I just can't. I hit send. Immediately, another text came through. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Edgar. My heart gave a frantic thump. I stared at the screen, the name Edgar, glowing. For a moment, I just let it ring, watching the name blink. Then, with a surge of something cold and determined, I answered, "Amara?" His voice, usually so steady, was hoarse, laced with panic. "Amara, where are you? I saw you. Please, don't do anything." "Don't do anything?" My voice sounded foreign, thin and reedy. "Don't do anything, Edgar?" What exactly is it you think I should not do? A long pause, just the sound of traffic in the background. "Please, just stay calm. Can we talk? Not now, not here, but soon." Soon? I almost laughed, a hysterical, bitter sound. "You're kidding, right? You just married my sister." My sister! What exactly is there to talk about? I know. I messed up. So badly. But please, don't ruin this for Peyton. She doesn't know. Not really. Not everything. His voice was desperate. "She doesn't know," I repeated, my mind reeling. My sister? The one who gave me that look, that pleading look. Are you really going to stand there right now after what just happened and tell me she doesn't know? She knows. Some of it. Not about you, Amara. Not about us. Please, just meet me. After the reception. We can explain. Both of us. Just give us a chance to explain." "You said the us." The word hung in the air, a venomous echo. So she was in on it. All of it. The depth of the betrayal hit me then, a physical blow. It wasn't just Edgar. It was Peyton, too. My sister. My closest confidant. "Explain what, Edgar?" "How you managed to string both of us along for 2 years. How you proposed to my sister while you were still sleeping in my bed last night. How you made us both absolute fools." My voice was rising, despite my efforts to keep it steady. A dog walker on the path glanced over, then quickly looked away. "Amara, please." "It's not like that. It got complicated. I swear, I never meant for anyone to get hurt." "Oh, really?" I snapped. "Because I'm hurt, Edgar. Right now, I'm more hurt than I've ever been in my life. And I have to go. I can't look at you. Not right now. Not ever." I hung up, my thumb slamming down on the screen. The quiet of the park descended again, but it felt colder, emptier. I stared at the phone, then threw it onto the grass beside me. It wasn't the discovery moment, not really. That was in the church. A horrifying dawning. This was the moment of bitter confirmation. The final crushing blow. The world didn't spin. My knees didn't go weak. I just sat there, numb, the cold seeping into my bones, listening to the distant chirping of birds and the absolute silence inside my own head. My sister. My own sister. What kind of person does that? What kind of monster was I dating? I don't know how long I sat on that bench. Eventually, the cold started to really get to me. My phone, still lying in the grass, vibrated again and again. Texts from Mom, from Peyton, calls from Edgar. I ignored them all. My mind felt strangely blank. Then a sudden surge of pure, unadulterated rage would hit me. A hot wave that left me trembling. Then exhaustion. It was a vicious cycle. I finally picked up my phone, not to respond, but to order a rideshare. I gave the driver my address. The ride home was silent, a blur of city streets and passing cars. My apartment felt alien when I walked in. Every object, every piece of furniture suddenly screamed of Edgar. His toothbrush in the bathroom, the half-finished book on my nightstand that we were reading together, the faint scent of his cologne on my sofa throw. I grabbed his things, anything that was undeniably his, and shoved them into a duffel bag, my movements jerky and uncoordinated. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I couldn't stand the sight of it. The calls and texts kept coming. I finally answered my mother, Sharon, around 6 p.m. She was frantic. "Amara! Where are you? The reception is about to start. Everyone's asking. Peyton is worried sick." "Mom," I said, my voice flat. "I'm not coming." "I can't. Something's happened. Something really bad." She immediately shifted from frantic to concerned. "Bad? What is it? Are you okay? Did you have an accident? Is it Edgar?" The sudden mention of his name made me wince. "It is Edgar, Mom. And it's Peyton. And I can't talk about it right now. Just tell everyone I'm sick. Tell them anything. I just need to be alone." I hung up before she could ask more questions. I knew she'd call my dad, Ronald, and they'd start piecing things together. Or at least try to. The next few days were a blur. I called in sick to work, inventing a stomach bug. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. The apartment was a mess of crumpled tissues and takeout containers. My best friend, Ivy, showed up at my door on Monday morning, a concerned frown on her face. "Amara, your mom called me. She said you were really sick, but she sounded worried, and you're not answering anyone." I opened the door a crack, then fully, letting her in. She took one look at me, my tear-swollen eyes, tangled hair, and the bridesmaid dress still on a chair, and her face crumpled. "Oh, honey, what happened?" I told her everything. It spilled out of me, a torrent of words, accusations, tears, and raw disbelief. Ivy just sat there, utterly silent, her mouth slowly dropping open as I talked. When I finished, the silence was heavy, punctuated only by my ragged breathing. "No," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "No way! That can't be real. Your sister and Edgar? The Edgar?" I nodded, unable to speak. That's messed up, Amara. Beyond messed up. That's some Lifetime movie shit." Ivy was my anchor. She was furious for me. She wanted to call Peyton, to rip into her, but I stopped her. "No, not yet. I don't even know what I feel about Peyton right now. It's too much." We started going through my phone, trying to reconstruct timelines. Pictures of Edgar and me with dates, texts, shared calendar invites. Then, looking at Peyton's social media, which I hadn't really paid attention to in months, there were photos of her and Logan, Edgar, at places I recognized, places Edgar and I had been. A hike on the same trail where Edgar and I went last October. A picture of them at the same Italian restaurant, tagged by Peyton a month after Edgar and I had an anniversary dinner there. It was sickening. They weren't hiding, not really. They were just operating in two separate spheres, believing I wouldn't connect the dots. The financial implications were minor, thankfully. We hadn't bought a house or had joint accounts, just shared a few subscription services, easy to cancel. But the emotional cost felt infinite. It made me question everything. My judgment, my sister's love, Edgar's entire character. What else had been a lie? Had any of it been real? I got a text from Edgar later that week. "Amara, please. I know you're hurting. I need to explain. There's so much you don't know." He kept saying that. So much you don't know. What could possibly justify this? What could make any of this okay? I sent back a single word. Don't. Then, a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. It was Henry, a colleague of Edgar's. "Amara?" "Hi, it's Henry, from Edgar's office. Look, I saw him at the wedding, and I wanted to say, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how deep it went. He told us he and Peyton were dating for a long time, but I knew you were together. He said you guys had broken up months ago, that you were just friends with benefits or something like that. I didn't realize he was still with you. I swear." Another piece of the puzzle. A bitter, twisted one. So he'd been lying to his colleagues too, building a completely different narrative. The layers of deceit were staggering. It wasn't just me. It was everyone. It's been a few weeks now since the wedding. I'm still navigating the wreckage. My apartment finally feels like my own again, mostly. Ivy's been a rock, cooking me meals, just sitting with me when I can't sleep. She's helped me block Edgar and Peyton on everything, though the urge to check their social media to see if they're still putting on a happy face for the world is a constant battle. I haven't spoken to Peyton since that exchange of texts. My parents are confused, worried, and calling me every day. I've given them a heavily edited version, telling them Edgar was seeing someone else, that he'd proposed to her, and I found out at the wedding. I just couldn't bring myself to say it was Peyton. Not yet. How do you tell your parents their youngest daughter married your long-term boyfriend behind your back? What have I learned? It's not some grand, enlightened wisdom, honestly. Mostly, I've learned how incredibly blind I can be when I want to believe something. How easily I dismissed little things. How I rationalized away the inconsistencies because the idea of betrayal was just too unfathomable. Especially from my own sister. I also learned that some people, even those you love most, are capable of truly shocking things. My vision of Peyton, my best friend, my little sister, is shattered. I don't know who she is anymore. For now, dating is completely off the table. The thought of trusting someone again, of letting them into my life, feels impossible. Every gesture, every kind word, every moment of affection now feels tainted with suspicion. I used to think I was a good judge of character. Turns out, I'm terrible. I'm starting therapy next month. I need help figuring out how to rebuild my trust, not just in others, but in myself. The big question that still hangs heavy is what to do about Peyton. Do I confront her? Do I tell my parents the full truth? Do I just cut her out of my life completely? How do you come back from this? Can you? And Edgar, he's still sending texts, always vague, always asking to explain. I can't even imagine what he thinks he could say. Part of me wants to hear it, just to understand the depths of his delusion. Another part just wants him to disappear. I'm sharing all this here because it feels like I'm trapped in a story that makes no sense, and I need to put it out there. Maybe someone else has been through something similar. Maybe someone has advice on how to navigate this kind of family betrayal. Thank you for reading, for letting me just unload. It feels a little lighter, just getting it all out. What do you do when your whole world, the one you thought was so solid, just evaporates into a lie? And how do you forgive, or even just move past something like this? I honestly don't know.